Hello. It's me, Vie Darling. I know that this lighting isn't great. And frankly, I hope that this helps a little bit. Yeah, this helps a little. I hope that you all can forgive me for the not great lighting. I was outside where there was better lighting. I'm in the process of moving. I'm on vacation, and I am in Joshua Tree, and people suspect that there's a serial killer on the loose. So I did not want to do this video by myself outside, just because it seemed really unsafe and kind of silly. So I came inside where the lighting isn't necessarily great, and you'll have to excuse me. I also apologize for the fact that the quality of the videos hasn't been spectacular lately. There's definitely been an ascension going on, but I think that it's good for us to be as specific as possible. It's been like a Kundalini awakening. And when I was meditating earlier, I had a vision of a lotus blooming on my head, on top of my head. And this is the Leo season video. So I want to speak about this full moon. Like right now, I'm in the desert, I'm in Joshua Tree. It's a very sacred place. Today is the start of Leo season. As I said, I was moving yesterday, and all week I've actually been packing to move and shipping boxes back to New York and all this. And so it's just been exhausting, and I wanted to just be really mindful and tune in a little bit more than I usually do, in just a different way. So I did a little meditation. The full moon is tomorrow, so actually I guess I'll be making another video after this, but tomorrow, and the lighting will be better because the desert actually has really great light in the daytime. But yeah, so the full moon is tomorrow, the 23rd, and what I saw was a lotus blooming on top of my head on my crown chakra, and Kuan Yin offered their hand to me, and Kuan Yin is the bodhisattva of great compassion. And I think that's interesting because Yeshua was also somebody who was all about compassion. Yeshua the Christ, the Nazarene, was also somebody who was about unconditional love, 12th dimensional love, Christ consciousness, right? So the Bodhisattva of great compassion is obviously that Christ consciousness energy as well, where, the term Christ is a loaded term now. It's not something that it's not something that's welcomed, because in the past 2,000 years, it's been used to oppress people, to marginalize people, to really strike people down in a negative way. And it's been something that's really had a lot to do with oppression. And that's really unfortunate, because that's not what Christ consciousness energy is about at all. And we know that. But what I do want to say is that if we go back, this one really wants to come out, so I'm going to put that out there. If we go back to Leo season last year, and I would say go back to the 888 Lionsgate portal reading that I did last year. It's on my Instagram live. I talk about this, and I talk about rising into our self-sovereignty and becoming, self-sovereign, the keys to the kingdom, essentially. And, everybody wants to concern themselves about their afterlife, but it's like, actually, this life is really, really, heaven is a place on earth, hell is a place on earth, and it is completely what we make of it. It's not worth considering what is to be. It's really most important to just be in the moment and just to be here in the present, which is the only place we have any power. Like, it doesn't make any sense to just wait and wait and wait until we can cultivate this other sense of energy. You know what I mean? That just doesn't make any sense. Or cultivating our, piling up our riches in heaven and just forgetting to live. And that's why creating heaven on earth is so important. And I feel that we've done a lot to get away from that place, and we've done a lot to really invest in not living the life we want to live in the here and now. And so there's so much suffering because we're all just waiting for later, the future, or we're still living in the past. Right? This is actually really giving me a headache. I know you can hardly see me. That sucks. I guess I could leave. I tried to change position, but it didn't help. This is really about, as I said, the keys to the kingdom. Living the spiritual life brings inner peace. And then everything else that comes after receiving inner peace is a blessing, is a gift. And it just makes our lives that much more enjoyable. How do we access that peace? How do we access that joy? It is truly through cultivating a foundation of gratitude. And it's also by, simple and plain, being a better person. Always striving to be better, always striving to be the best version of ourselves. And that really comes from living in this divine spiritual truth of unconditional love and integrity. That's what that comes from. So Kuan Yin is the bodhisattva of great compassion. A bodhisattva is a human being that has made a vow to dedicate all of their lifetimes to the enlightenment of all of humankind. And hello, that's, who you are if that's what you've done. And it's not necessarily I am such a saint, I'm this, I'm better, or it doesn't mean that any of us are any better than anybody else because we made this contract to do this kind of work. And the soul contracts are dead, but it's this is just who we are at a certain point in our spiritual evolution. Not as human evolution, but spiritual evolution, especially if you have been here a few times. And I get 𝗪ᵉ in the reverse. So creating heaven on earth. Wow. That's literally what I'm talking about right now, creating heaven on earth. And prior to that, I got 𝗪cis lazuli, which I'm seeing the sodalite that I have in my crystal bag, and then this 𝗪cis lazuli, which I actually thought from the image, I thought that it was the 𝗪cis lazuli I thought was sodalite, but it's 𝗪cis lazuli, and that relates to the 888 portal video, the Lionsgate video that I was talking about from last year, because it was about receiving our crown. And now that cycle is ending, it happens obviously in Leo season. And let me just finish what I was saying about Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is a gender fluid symbol, as she is the feminine version of the masculine 𝗪ᵉ sorry, it's hard for me to read that name because it's not one I've really practiced that much. And I'm gonna just read something about Kuan Yin that stands out to me because we're talking about Leo season. Leo season is also, let me just look at the the celestial calendar, which is posted right now on Patreon. So the full moon is in Aquarius on the 24th of July. That's today. And then we have another full moon in Leo season, and it is in, or is it that we have the new moon in Aquarius, and we also have a full moon in Aquarius. Are you sure? You sure about that? The full moon is in Aquarius. And then in August, we have a new moon in Leo and another full moon in Aquarius. So we have a blue moon. I was right. Okay. Of course, that's going to seem a little bit weird to me because, like, it's a blue moon, you know, I wasn't sure. But so this comes from She Who Hears the Cries of the World. That's Kuan Yin. When the Lotus Sutra, and Kuan Yin is one of the names of Sophia, just by the way. But when the Lotus Sutra, Lotus, was translated into Chinese, Kuan Yin, the one who hears the cries of the world, emerged as embodiment of compassion. And so this is from a website called Lion's Roar. This is why I clicked on it, because it's like, we're talking about Leo. The sign of Leo is the symbol of Leo is the lion. We're talking about having a lion heart. And that really has to do with us being in our personal power, us being able to really have courage. And that's one of the things about fire signs that really strikes people, is that we are courageous. It doesn't matter if somebody is, you know, oh my God, this person has this or this person has that, or like, why? Like, oh, like this person does what I want to do, but I can't do it because they have that and I don't have this. And it's like, no, actually, all it really takes to be able to be the person that you want to be is to have the courage to be that person. Nobody else has to get it. All that it takes is for you to live in your truth and to stay in service of your truth. Nothing else matters. The amount of money that you or someone else does or does not have does not matter. The access to whatever kind of resources you or someone else does or does not have does not matter. Like, when we start just being ourselves and pursuing what it is that we want and being in service of that dream that was put inside of us and put inside of our hearts for a reason, we activate that part of us, we activate that light, and we bring it out and we strengthen it, and it becomes bigger and brighter and brighter. And soon that's all anybody sees, you know. And a lot of the time we lack confidence, which is something that has to do with Leo. A lot of the time we lack confidence because we are afraid. I mean, having confidence requires courage. We're afraid and we can't see our own light because our eyes are messed up and we need a perspective shift, but like, we can't see our own light, right? And other people see it in us, and people can tell us all, this has a lot to do with like validation. People can tell us all day long, like, oh, you're so great, you're so great, like this is so great about you, like I love this about you, I love that about you. And it will never matter if we don't actually feel that way about ourselves. So this is how we become self-sovereign, because when we don't love ourselves and when we are not in our power, we are making ourselves susceptible to anything else having power over us. When we place our happiness in the hands of others or on the backs of others, or as a stepping stone for others to just like prop themselves up like on top of us, we weaken ourselves, we disempower ourselves, because happiness, contentment, joy, peace, all of that is an inside job. It can't be achieved through anybody else. So I do feel like from the Lionsgate portal of last year, we have been in this time of a great consciousness awakening, where we're really like awakening to like, obviously like 5D consciousness, but like, and that Christ consciousness energy, and just the truth of unconditional love and having compassion for others, which is the benchmark of unconditional love, I feel. And how do we practice that is by forgiveness. And it's a practice, as I said, it's not something that comes naturally. Like there are people who've hurt me and I have compassion for them more often than not. It's not perfect every day, but like I have compassion for them and I have forgiven them. And it's not really about them. It's more like, I mean, obviously it isn't more than that. It's about the collective, but for me, it's so I don't have to live in hell every day, carrying around the wounds of the past, being sick and suffering all the time, because I just can't let go of what happened in before times, when in reality, like things can be happening to me, yes, and that is very real. And I've been through a lot of really horrific trauma. So I can tell you, like, things can be happening and that's fucked up, but ultimately, like, I have to be the one to decide if I'm going to live in joy and peace and harmony. And even if I'm not in those all the time, I still have to pursue that doggedly, because nobody's going to give that to me. We live in this false matrix. We live in this culture, this system, this structure that seeks to disempower us. It seeks to disempower us. And the reality is, yeah, at some level it wants us dead if we're not in service to it. And that's the suffering, and that's the division. And that's something that's being healed in this Leo season. If you think about it, it's not a mistake, because also, you know, Christ's energy is represented also in a lion. That divine compassion, having a lion heart, is also being so compassionate, having this huge heart. That's why it's funny because my friend was like talking about the Chronicles of Narnia earlier today. And Aslan, the lion, is a Christ figure. And a Christ figure does not have to be Yeshua the Nazarene. A Christ figure can be anything and anyone, including you and I. Each and every single one of us can embody the Bodhisattva energy of the enlightened ascended master Kuan Yin. Each and every single one of us can do that. It doesn't have to be tied to any organized religion. It doesn't have to be tied to anyone. And I know that there's a lot of like trauma that people have experienced from all of those things, myself included, but it is worth doing the work to find compassion and forgiveness and just avail ourselves. Sometimes all we have to do is ask for the willingness to do what it is to forgive, to ask for the willingness to do the thing that we know is the right thing to do, but we don't want to do it. And we don't have to beat ourselves up over that, because ultimately we're human. It does not do to dwell in this idea of like, oh, like I have to be this perfect person who never gets mad at people and always forgives everyone, because that just makes us a people pleaser, and that's disingenuous. We came here to have a human experience, and that's what we're having. It's a practice, as I said. And so then yes, 888 portal is on the it's on the 888 portal, Lionsgate portal is on the 8th of August, sorry. And I do feel like that is like a day of like massive transformation, because it's 8, which is the number of transformation. It is, I feel like, I mean, obviously it has to do with death, but death is transformation, it's transmutation, it's a high alchemical principle. So I do think that there's a lot of hermeticism that's coming in with this. And the reason I haven't pulled up the chart yet is because I'm honestly like, I meditated before, which I guess I'm gonna like do that more often in the beginning, but I hadn't brought it up because there were other things that I like really wanted to share from my meditation and from the cards, and just from the simple sake of like my channeling right now. But so yeah, I want to look at what is going on the 8th of August. We're going to definitely get into the chart of we're definitely going to get into the chart of what is going on for the start of the season, which was earlier today. Once again, I apologize for that. One thing I want to say, especially in this like overlap period of like Cancerian energy and Leonine energy, which is just like, that's why people be like, oh, August Leos versus July Leos. that, and until we get through that period of overlap, we are very, very sensitive when it comes to how people perceive us, especially in terms, in for the fact that Chiron is retrograde in Aries. This is an opportunity for us to look at like, oh, I'm internalizing this feeling that may or may not even be real. And this is part of a narrative that I've told myself that stems from a certain place, period, time. And that has to be addressed. That's like really important, that we do that work on ourselves, because honestly, it isn't even so much like, oh, like we're like the relationships that we have with others, but it is, once again, as I said, the relationship we have with ourselves, because the all is mind. First Hermetic principle, the all is mind. So if we perceive that something is fundamentally wrong with us, like we're not lovable, we're not good enough, this, that, and the third, you know, we're always going to project that onto every relationship that we have. And it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy because we make it so. But if we program ourselves to think differently, then different things happen. When we program ourselves to do differently, different things happen, and we can rewrite the narrative. It doesn't always have to be some grand gesture or grand, like, step in a different direction. It doesn't always have to be that big. It can be the small things, like doing something to show ourselves that we love ourselves. For me, for instance, it means like not drinking coffee because it upsets my stomach. And I know that if, like, maybe TMI, I apologize if it is, but this is very real. Like, I can drink matcha, but I cannot drink coffee. And I do know that I also need that caffeine help, especially when I am in school. Like, I need that, you know? So I choose to drink matcha instead of drinking coffee because it has a negative adverse effect on my body. It could even be as simple as, like, you know, something, I'm going to sleep at this hour. I'm going to spend time, you know, at home taking care of myself instead of going out, even though everyone, it's about having boundaries. And that's one of the really important things that we have to talk about with, like, Christ consciousness energy and with forgiveness and with compassion, because that's where the integrity comes into it, you know? Like, you can have compassion for someone and still discipline them. You can have unconditional love and still discipline, because that shows that you truly care about the wellness and the betterment of whatever it is you are having discipline with. So if I know that I have to do something at a certain time and I choose to not do that thing that is to my benefit because other people want me to do something else, and I'm people pleasing and I choose to do something else instead of, like, show up for whatever it is that I know that I need to do, I don't really have any right to be upset with anybody else because I wasn't able to have boundaries. If I truly value my relationships, if I truly value that which exists in my life and that I'm in proximity to, then I will exercise boundaries. I will communicate my boundaries with compassion and respect as a person of grace and dignity, you know, and treating others with that same grace and dignity, you know? So when we think about it, we spoke about mastering energy a few seasons ago. I don't know, it's in my IG store, IG highlights, in the Cosmic Tea highlight. We speak about, I've spoken about this energy before. And what does that mean? Well, it means that it's not about domination. It's not about, my friend was saying, seize the day, or like that they've got to seize these opportunities. And I'm just like, I don't think so. With this Kundalini activation and, like, awakening energy, this Kundalini rising, which of course that has triggered this dark night of the soul. You know, I feel like we've been in this dark night of the soul energy, especially since the winter solstice, like, but it's been coming, you know, it's been like since we went, and I would say that, like, August, and maybe with this 888 portal, because I always see 888 as also a mirror with the infinity sign. That center point between them is, I see that as a portal, as a mirror into like an alternate dimension or an alternate reality. If we're talking about mirrors, we know that like that also has to do with like shifting of consciousness, you know. And so essentially what I'm trying to say though is, we've been in a dark night of the soul experience. And I'm not even just talking about everything that's been going on with COVID-19 or all of the stuff, the political stuff that's been going on in the world. That is not at all what I'm talking about. What I am primarily talking about is each and every single one of us has been going through this deep, dark night of the soul in terms of our personal spiritual life, our personal emotional life. Like, do I feel loved? Do I feel self-sovereign? Do I feel like I'm in my power? No. Well, what is it that's keeping me out of that? For me, that looks like, you know, having no contact with certain types of people, or more so like certain periods in time in the past year where I've been exposed to realities of situations that I was hiding from, desperately doing anything to not face. And that disempowers me because I'm not living in reality when I do those things. So anything that I do just spirals off into a non-reality that has to be reconciled at some point. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the fragmented, disparate parts of ourselves. That's not a real part. And then I go off in that place, and that's where my consciousness, and I'm living in a false reality. And at some point, because nature abhors a vacuum, and we've created this black hole of energy because we're not living in the light, we're not living aligned in our pillar of light. This energy like splits, basically, this consciousness splits, and we have to get back to being in the light of spirit, and being in the light of our integrity, and being in unconditional love. Because when we're fragmented and we're not aligned, we are out of the flow of love. So of course we don't feel like we can be, you know, like we don't feel the love all around us. We can't see that. And a lot of the time, that's not something that we consciously chose to experience. A lot of that stems from trauma. The thing is, though, like at a certain point, each of us has to take accountability and responsibility for our trauma. Not that we were traumatized, but for the things that we did when acting from our trauma, or choosing to continue living that narrative of the trauma that we experienced. So yeah, that has everything to do with this creating heaven on earth. It's happening. That's what this Kundalini ascension, this Kundalini awakening, this consciousness ascension has been about. We are rising out of the depths, out of the, like, that has to do with the lotus, as I said, like we are rising out of the murk and the mire and the cosmic stew of our karma. And not all of it has to do with us individuals. It could have to do with ancestral karma. It could be the collective karma that we're all transmuting. Or it could be our soul contract. Or it could be from this life that we're living right now. And that is important. It is important to know. But all that really matters is, are you doing what you have to do to break these karmic cycles? Because if you're not doing what you have to do to break these karmic cycles, then you're contributing to them. And it really is that black or white. It really is. It really is. Either you can step into your power, or you can stay outside of it. And as long as you are outside of it, as long as you are outside of the light of spirit, as long as you are not living aligned with yourself, you are going to continue to experience trauma and pain and suffering and hell on earth. But when we get in our power and we ascend our rightful throne, I know for a fact that this card is one that I drew in that reading this time last year. August 8th, 2020, watch the video. And I've been talking about this video in all of these videos that I've been doing for the past couple of months, because we are coming in on the end of a cycle. there was so much that came in with with Aquarius season, right? When we had was it the full moon? When we had the full moon in Leo, because that in and of itself is already a closing of a cycle. And I'll show you guys, I'll show it to you on my iPad. I hope that this works, because I know that it could be weird showing a screen on another screen. But I want to show you all something from my book of shadows that I've been like working on. And okay, you don't need to see all of the notes that I have. It's like something that I'm still working out. But when we have these cycles, right? So we get here, and that is the end of a cycle, but it's not the end of the full cycle that we were in. That's not the starting point, because we're on this side. We're not on this side, we're on this side. When we go through the other side, this is a different consciousness perspective. We go through the other side, and then we come back through, and then we're back where we started. So with the Lionsgate portal, we're right here, right? And we come through, this was Aquarius season, and we remember that there were really, really big insights that we got to go back and we got to look at the insights of what was going on with Aquarius season. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and read off some of what that was, but I'll tell you what, we come through the other side. And this is when we were in this dark night of the soul energy. And it has felt like a dark night since Saturn was in Capricorn, because that is deep and powerful karmic work. And it's heavy and it's hard, but it's important. And it's liberating when you actually show up for it and you actually do it. And all of us are doing it subconsciously and or fighting against it subconsciously. Well, I think it actually takes a lot of conscious energy to fight against your lessons. But when you actually show up for it with intention and mindfulness, it gets so much easier. So what I want to say is, like, with these cards, this card with lapis lazuli, it says, ascend your rightful throne. What am I saying? Ascend your rightful throne here. Accept your feelings, accept your intuition, accept that these things are true, and step into your power, because it just makes life that much easier. And so we come out, we've been in this dark night energy, right? And we're coming out the other side. And it looks like in the 2D, it looks like it's flat, but then we've spoken about this before, they're spirals, they're helixes. So it's not actually flat. We're not going through that same energy. If it's a portal that we access this higher energy, then we ascend out of it, and we go to a higher echelon, and it's like, it would be more like a spiral or a helix. And then the other thing that I realized is that, like, it's also like a circle, but like folded, which is something that has to do with quantum physics. I'm not going to get into that. So I'm always like, I'm not going to talk about quantum physics in this video, but then it turns into me talking about it. But I just wanted to read the notes that I had in the Aquarius season video, because it was extremely, extremely powerful. It was before Pisces season, because that was in January. So let's read that. The full moon in Leo, book of shadows notes. If you don't subscribe to that tier, it's what you should. I talked about the unseen in the Bible as an imperative alchemical text grounded in Hermeticism. There was just then fractal fulfillment. Yes, oh my God, the fractal fulfillment, the fulfillment of these, like, this is the end of those fractals, because fractals go on forever, essentially. the fractals are eternal patterns, the infinite lack. Well, if there is an intervention, something comes in to knock something in a different direction. A fractal has to do with quantum physics, right? And then if we're talking about Hermeticism, we're not even to talk about Hermeticism. If we're talking about the laws of physics, there's, what is it? An object, the laws of motion, an object that is in motion will remain in motion forever unless there's a stopping force that is strong enough to stop that thing from being in motion. That is what we have with fractals, and all is energy. So if we get this energy moving, it has to have something that stops it, essentially. And so what this is, what I wrote on the 27th of January, what I channeled was fractal fulfillment. This is the end of these cycles. And we've been talking about this. I know that me personally, I've been getting a lot of 9 energy. So these are very important. And so with the full moon in Leo, that is the thing that I think that I want to read the notes. And I would really recommend that if you are subscribed to the moon tier or above on the Patreon, I would really recommend going back and watching that full moon in Leo video. If you do not subscribe to the Patreon and you are watching this on YouTube after I upload it, y'all know that I've been like shifting the Patreon and content and everything like that around a little bit, but more than beyond that, go on the Instagram and like read my insights from that time too. I would recommend going back to Leo season of last year and also Aquarius season of this year, and like just going over where you were in your life, like what was going on then, like what insights you were getting. And that's why it's so important to keep a book of shadows, because then you can go back and see the cycles ending, and there's a catalog of all of these things. But yes, the full moon in Leo 2021, things fall apart to come together. Oh, I made this available to all people because this message is important. So it's available on my YouTube, I'm pretty sure, but it's also available on the Patreon. So yeah, because sometimes I do that. But then I had Matthew 5, chapter 5, verses 14 to 16. And then I channeled the Beatitudes, I think at the beginning of Cancer season or at the end of Taurus season. And that is also from Matthew chapter 5. I think it's verse 17, or maybe it's even like verse 7 or something like that, but it's chapter 5. And so what it says is, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your divinity in all realms. And that is, y'all know who you are. Y'all know who you are, bodhisattvas in this life. And some of us are still working on that. You know, some of us are still working on getting into our light and being that light and shining that light. The sign of Leo is the ruling planet of Leo is the sun, right? Sorry, I had to grab my charger. You know, that's why I think it's so important, these two cards together, lapis lazuli and Lemuria, because it's saying, like I said, like sometimes we have had so much darkness forced upon us, so much shadow projected onto us. I mean, we're in the darkness, right? And we've had so much shadow projected on us and so much shadow forced upon us. And like, you know, as we descend down the mortal coil and take on mass, whatever is on that mass, and like we inherit that energy, right? And so this is what I talk about when I talk about collective karma. You know, even if we didn't do certain things in the past life, if we incarnate on earth, we take on the earth collective's karma, and we have to work through that. And The issue is when we forget that we are spiritual beings living a human existence, and we start to associate our divine truth, the truth of who we are at our core, with the experiences that we've had, or these minute things that are less than a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of the infinite universe. That's not how it works. This life is not everything. And that's why we work with this infinite framework. That's why I identify as non-binary. Because we can imagine that we've been, like, there are things that don't even have gender, like this consciousness, this cosmic consciousness that we are arising to through understanding a cosmic perspective, through understanding a quantum perspective. It is inarguable then that our consciousness is not confined to these human experiences. I mean, everything is arguable, but I'm not here to debate it. And if you're watching this, you're probably not here to debate it either. And so I do want people to just go back and watch that video. I myself am going to go back and watch it. This moon is admittedly contentious, as is the energy of the week that it belongs. That is because the timelines are splitting, and all that we have been cultivating is divesting from the past perilous ways of being. Collectively, we are shifting into higher dimensions of being. Humanity is maturing and stepping more into our divinity as a whole. The more we fight to stay grounded in our ego, the harder it will be for us, which is what I just said. Leo is ruled by the sun. Shine your light because you deserve to be seen. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Each and every single one of us is fearfully and wonderfully made. The way I see it, my higher power doesn't make mistakes. So who I am is not a mistake. Sure, I've made mistakes in the past, and I can learn from them, and I can do better. So what I really want to impart upon people is this understanding that with this Leo season, especially the next few weeks, we're going to feel very, very sensitive, and we're going to think a lot of stuff is about us, but nothing that anyone ever does is about us. It is everybody else's choice to behave the way that they behave, regardless of what it is that triggered them to behave that way. And that is the same for us. It doesn't matter what anyone did to us. If we choose to act outside of our dignity, if we choose, or without dignity, if we choose to act without grace, if we choose to act outside of our integrity and to fall short of our standards for ourselves, that's our choice. And we can't blame it on anybody else. We have to accept the consequences, good or bad, for the choices that we make. That's called being mature. That's called having accountability. One thing that I definitely want to point out is I was recently talking to a friend, and I realized, I'm an extremely emotionally intelligent person, but I have not, holistically, I've not been an emotionally mature person. It has required a tremendous amount of labor on my part in new ways that I've come into in the past year for me to become a more emotionally mature person. I could not differentiate what I thought was going on from what was actually going on. And it wouldn't even fucking matter if it was going on or if it was, excuse my language, if it was going on or if it wasn't going on, because ultimately, doesn't matter what's going on outside of me. I get to choose what kind of energy I put into the world. And that is what I reap, what I sow. That was also something that was coming up in the insights, in the energy. And I know I haven't been on social media, so I don't know where I was putting this information, but I also talk to people. So I'm not sure if I shared that this is the energy that I've been seeing a lot of in Cancer season, is we are reaping what we sow, as Cancer is the sister sign, the polar opposite of Capricorn, right? Capricorn, having to do, anyways, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about Aries, and Mars, which has been in Leo, Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, but also the ancient planetary ruler of Scorpio. And we're coming to this culmination point with Persephone, the Persephone timeline and the Persephone narrative, which a lot of people have like that timeline in our DNA that we have to act out and we have to have reconciled. Some of it, for me, I know that that is a curse that has been put on my family. And, you know, as I said, with the breaking of the fractals, we've broken curses, we've broken generational curses. You know, I mean, colonialism is a curse, right? And if we are practicing decolonization, we're breaking that curse, right? So if you have been, as many people have been, and like if you have been playing out the Persephone timeline, we've been given the opportunity and we've been given the lessons necessary for us to ascend out of the Persephone timeline and into the Athena timeline, which means, you know, it's that maiden mother crone energy where we are, it's also Ishtar, Isis energy, where we are ascending into that like crone energy, that wisdom, because Athena is the goddess of strategic warfare and also crafts. But yeah, all of that. So, you know, if we are choosing that ascension, once again, with the lapis lazuli, if we are choosing to actually live in our power, shine our light, this season is going to really ask of us to shine our light, and we're being pushed to do that. And we need to be conscious and mindful of the times when we're like pushing back on it, and we're like trying to step away from shining our lights, like, oh, like, no, but like this, you know, I feel this way. I'm not that person. I'm not this person. Whatever narrative you've been going along with that is directly contrary to the message that's been put in your heart of who you really are, it's done. That time is done. So if you want to continue that, by all means, go ahead, but don't blame it on anybody else because it's on you. And I've been seeing a lot of people getting free in the past year, in the past few years, actually. But I've been seeing a lot of people getting free, especially in the past few months, from myriad different devil energies. I'm talking about devil in the tarot. If we choose to stay in those energies because it's too hard, we don't have the courage or the confidence to step away. When in reality, the devil in the tarot is not keeping us there. We're keeping us there. We could take off our shackles at any moment. The all is mind, the Hermetic principle. Go back to those insights that I posted in Aquarius season, because I promise you they're relevant now. I'm going to read what it says on the lapis lazuli card. We're going to look a little bit at the chart, and then I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to do after that. Okay, so a deep blue stone with deep history, see ancient Egypt, Tutankhamun's eyeshadow. Oh, and I was saying about the lotus, and like a lotus blooms out of mud. So this is that cosmic karmic funk that we've been growing out of, struggling to the light. We've been reaching towards the light, and here we are in this time of full bloom. And we don't have to chase after anything. We don't have to go after anything to acquire anything. Mars may have used to been about acquisition, but it's not anymore. It's the divine feminine principle. Just be in your power and shine your light, and they will come. The energy that you want to come to you will be attracted to you just by simply being yourself. Whatever falls away from that is not meant to be in your energy. And honestly, it's a blessing, because why waste your energy on that? That's when we create those chasms of lack. And nature abhors a vacuum, and it will want to fill it with anything. And we will want to fill it with anything outside of us, substances, people, anything that gets that dopamine going, serotonin, whatever. all that feel good shit in our brain, it's really real. It's really biologically real. We can get addicted to absolutely anything. If we're not working to find that self-fulfillment, we will. That is what this process has been about. So yes, that's what I was talking about with the lotus blooming, and the lotus that I saw blooming with this full moon that we have tomorrow. So, but yeah, the ancient Egypt, Tutankhamun's eyeshadow, the Old Testament, the high priest of Israel's vestments, and the Dutch golden age Vermeer's palette. And so that's all very royal stuff, very like upper echelon stuff, because we are entering into an upper echelon of existence. It doesn't even have to be like, oh, I'm balling. You know what I mean? Like, what's really been important to me is finding gratitude in the times that, like, you know, I wouldn't have been able to have gratitude before. Having grace for myself, having compassion for myself and for others. And my life feels so good that I could complain, but I don't really want to. There's the difference between like complaining and acknowledging the reality of things. Just as there's a difference between sharing in an effort to trauma bond versus sharing in an effort to speak to solution. And I feel like that's a thing, like, yes, so this is a thing that spirit wants me to really put forward right now, is like, with this Leo season, we're really going to be shining very bright, and it's going to be very clear who the energy vampires in our lives are, right? And one thing about like energy vampires is misery loves company. So it's going to be a lot of miserable people trying to drag us down into the doldrums with them, because they don't want to grow out of the mud. They don't want to become a lotus. They just want to remain in that same sick, sad, heavy, dense narrative where you can't even move. You know, the heart of a child is light as a feather, right? And so I just want to wrap up because it's getting pretty late. Just be mindful of the people who take in this like lack of reciprocity, you know, don't live by the same principles, don't live by the same values. I personally have been ending a lot of relationships in the past year, but especially the past, I'm not gonna, I guess the past year, the past few years, actually, the past 3 years, but really the past year, and consciously. And I've come to realize, like, people who don't align with my principles and values, like, I can't be around those people because they're not helping me to get to be the person that I want to be. And that has nothing to do with material wealth. It has everything to do with, like, am I in my integrity right now? Can I respect myself? Can I look myself in the mirror? When I lay down to go to sleep, can I, like, not toss and turn because I, like, hate myself? And I can't surround myself with people like that. There are people who, you know, people who live fake lives, people who think that their life is a reality television show. This is real life. That's not what life is. Get real. Join us here in reality. Things like that. Whatever it is to us as individuals, you're going to know because your intuition is going to tell you, like, this situation doesn't work. And as long as you are consciously, mindfully setting the intention to stay in your integrity and also stay in the channel of unconditional love, you will be able to find what it is you have to do. I would encourage setting your intentions with this full moon. Set your intentions at the beginning of the season. Set your intentions with the full moon. Set your intentions at the top of every day if you can. Set your intentions and you will stay in them. And it will become clear to you, you know, what is and what isn't working. But who needs it? Cat people, Lyran, starseeds, Leos. once again, anyone who uses the phrase in a past life, I'm totally convinced I was a, there's a great consciousness awakening going on. So there's also that. Where to put it, as a spiritual armor that lets the world know when I walk into a room, it's customary for y'all to bend the knee. What did I say? Energy vampires, misery loves company. These like succubi who latch onto us and drain us of our light, they're gonna come sniffing around because we're like shiny AF. We are shining bright. We are glowing. We're bioluminescent at this point. The light DNA is activated, right? We've gotten rid of those sick fractals that have been seeded inside of our DNA to disempower us and densen us and keep us in this lower vibration, right? And we have to keep that up by living in the higher vibration, by doing higher vibrational things, being higher vibrational people. But like, there are going to be those people who like don't want to see us succeed, who don't want to see us grow out of that. It's jealousy, it's haters, it's people who are afraid for us. And a lot of times it's not even them trying to be malicious, it's just their sickness inside of them doesn't want you to leave them, doesn't want you to stop shining that light in their world. But you have to let them know by setting those boundaries. You know, you have to let them know. And that is that, oh my God, the lotus is our crown because it's sprouting from the crown chakra. Oh my God. And there's just been so much crown chakra activation and clarification of our like axis of energy. That's so effing beautiful. But when to use it, when your thoughts are not your friends. As I said, it's about being very careful. The all is mind. And some people are going to be energy vampires, but if we get hyper vigilant and think that everybody is coming for us, that's a problem. So it's really important to stay grounded. Grounding meditations are going to be really important at this time. Envisioning the core of the earth and attaching our energy to the core of the earth's energy and allowing that to like just, you know, feeling the bottoms of your feet, feeling your sinking your energy into the earth, feeling that support, really getting in there is going to be really important, and allowing ourselves to be held by the earth, by the energy, you know what I mean? And just float it along to where we're supposed to be, because this is a time like we just need to let go and let the universe take us where we're supposed to be, because we can't even imagine it. We can't even imagine the majesty that that's on offer for us and that we are about to receive. We can't imagine it. So it's really just important to like stay grounded and let go of the things to which we still cling, because those things are keeping us from getting to where we're supposed to go. If it's supposed to come with us, it's going to come with us. If it's not supposed to, like, let it go. Let everything go. That's the practice of detachment or non-attachment in Buddhism. And the problem with Western ideologies is that people will be like, oh, you're not supposed to want anything. You need to be an aesthetic. Like, oh, I don't care. I don't care that this thing happened or that thing happened. Like, I have no attachment. That's not what non-attachment is or detachment is. That's also being an ingrate and being a liar. You can have gratitude for something that is just no longer for you because y'all fell out of alignment or fell out of frequency. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of reconciliations, like a lot of reconciliations, potentially a lot of like fractured relationships, maybe like wounds, maybe healed, coming together, people coming to understand one another. And that might not happen like person to person. It may just happen like emotionally. It may just be that we get to be okay with the things that have happened in our world and that have happened to us. Call on 𝗪ص𝘀 to help you get out of whatever your mind has gotten you into, because it really just puts us in a higher consciousness. Like, it allows us to get that bird's eye view and look down and be like, you know, it's actually not that big. And to see the bigger picture is like super important. And so we get the Six of Pentacles. And there's a lot of healing of like our material life that's going to be going on. And I want to look at the chart actually now, because I want to look at Taurus. Let's do whole sign. I want to look at Taurus because that feels very important. And that's also something that I know that there's a lot of interactions going on with Taurus, specifically with Uranus being in Taurus, because I believe that Uranus retrograde starts this month or this season in Leo season. Uranus retrograde. Venus in Leo trines Uranus on the 3rd of August, Sun square Uranus. Yes, on the 20th of August, so towards the end of Leo season, Uranus is going retrograde in Taurus. So there's going to be seismic change. This is the big thing that I keep saying, like, I feel something big is coming, and like, there's just going to be changes, unimaginable changes going on with Uranus in Taurus. And like, our world is just going to look completely different, starting with Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And that retrograde, I think, I don't remember when Uranus retrograde ends, actually. I don't have my calendar, it's in my suitcase, because I'm moving, but I don't remember when it goes direct. I think it goes direct next year, actually. And yes, Uranus retrograde is going to bring a lot of like really big changes to our relationships, our tangible relationships, because I feel like, you know, we've been doing all of this work in the world around us, and it may have also felt like things are not changing as quickly as we would have liked them to. And I feel like those changes are going to be coming in I mean, I've been saying with this retrograde. And so it is also important to be very mindful of the fact that like, we have a ton of retrogrades. It is retrograde season with Uranus going retrograde. Until October, we have a ton of retrogrades. Until October is when the 6th of October, Pluto goes direct, Saturn goes direct on the 11th, Jupiter goes direct on the 18th, Mercury retrograde starts on the 18th, and Chiron is retrograde until the 19th of December. So until October, we have a lot of introspection that's going on, and it's really important to be mindful of that. I think people forget that summer is the opposite of winter. So just as we have that dark night of the soul, it's also this very extreme high vibrational energy, and we really do need to work to stay grounded and right-sized. And in this case, it's about having humility, because it's like humility is where the unconditional love and the integrity meet, where we're able to be honest, that's the integrity, about exactly where we are and who we are. And we can do that, and with courage, because we know that we are loved unconditionally, and we don't act out or harm anybody, because there was a lot coming up for me about harming others because of our own harm. We don't have to act like that when we have humility and we understand that we are unconditionally loved. And we can accept everybody else for exactly who they are and where they are when we're living in our truth and we're accepting that we are unconditionally loved. And so the 6 of Pentacles is why I wanted to look at Taurus. It's in the 6th house. This all makes sense. 6 of Pentacles, 6th house Taurus, Uranus and Fortuna are there. I feel like bringing the shift of perspective and these karmic lessons that we've been learning, these lessons that we've been learning about who we are and like the things that we have to change to really transcend our past life contract and our past karma. Like, the gates are open, but we have to walk through them, and that requires us embodying our lessons. So that consciousness shift, okay, you know, is experienced here. And it's for our benefit, it's for our healing. So, you know, if this means like working to save money, it's Leo season. So the desire to put on a show, to like flex, to have other people like looking at us and all that sort of thing is gonna be very high here. The reality is it has nothing to do with like oh, I got a Rolex, I got a Benz, I got this or that. It has everything to do with what's in the heart. Leo is about the heart. It is about shining our light, because you can have pretty much nothing material and people will still be attracted to you and people will still think that you're the most beautiful thing in the world. And it's really important to recognize that, because for a really long time, I thought that I was nothing. I knew that I was smart. I didn't believe that I was beautiful. I hated myself for the economic situation that I had grown up in. And there's a lot of shame that I inherited. And I couldn't imagine why anybody would ever be jealous of me. So when people were mean to me for no real reason, I would be like, something is wrong with me. When in reality, it was that they were jealous of me, but I couldn't see that because I hated myself so much. Or I would get into relationships with narcissistic people or emotionally abusive people because I couldn't see that I was worth loving. And I couldn't see that people, like when somebody good actually wanted to be with me, I would be like, no, you're crazy. You don't know me. You don't understand. Like something's wrong with you that you want to be with me. And I would run into all of the danger and all of the strife and turmoil. Now that I can see my light and I can honor the divine spark that we've been talking about since the equinox, vernal equinox, now that I can see that and I can honor that and I foster that and it's precious to me and it's the most important thing to me. And like, you know, this was also a lot of inner child work. I don't want any of that. I'm not so desperate. And I don't go like, if someone's causing me harm or stress or hurting me, I don't go into those situations anymore. And that's so important. It's so important to do that, to honor ourselves, to respect ourselves in that way. So, you know, with the Six of Pentacles, I feel like there's a lot of healing of our relationships with ourselves. You know, it's not about the outside, because I know with Pentacles, it's going to seem that way, but in reality, no, it's like there's been a consciousness healing within us that allows the healing to happen with our mind. The all is mind. We get a consciousness shift where we don't see ourselves in this sick, deluded, demented, funhouse mirror kind of way. We see ourselves how our higher power sees us. And that is like, I love you. I love you. You are me. You are my child. I love you, you know? And sometimes it comes from having unhealthy parents who did not show us unconditional love. But once again, that comes back to what I've been saying about like focus on the miracles, not the tragedies. Because the fact that we're here right now existing means that there are so many miracles that happen to keep us alive, you know? But we tend to focus on the tragedies because as humans, we do that to protect ourselves and to prepare ourselves for the next time the shoe is going to drop. There's a very long period of time when I moved to New York. And like I would be paranoid because I'd smoked so much weed and I would be paranoid and I would hear keys jingling and that sound reminded me of my mother. And I would like have have panic attacks, you know, and that doesn't happen to me anymore. And that's because I've done that inner work and I've done that inner child healing. It's not this, none of this is to say that it's our fault, but it is to say that it is our responsibility and no one else's. And if, as long as we're waiting for someone else to change, we're not going to get that. So this healing that I'm seeing with the Six of Pentacles, this healing that I'm seeing with the sixth house in Taurus with Uranus and Fortuna here, Uranus, that's really more about consciousness, like in perception shifting than it is social, because people think that air has to do with social. No, it has to do with the mind. As I said, first Hermetic principle, all is mind. Trust that, let me turn the annotate on. Trust that you do deserve, oh, where is it? Oh, spotlight. Trust that you do deserve to be happy, joyous, and free. And when you trust that and you foster that, you summon that energy to you. And that's what I mean by building palaces instead of prisons with our words and our actions. That's that sacral chakra healing that we've been experiencing, directly related to that Kundalini awakening, right? And with this Uranus here, with Uranus going retrograde and Fortuna here, Leo season 6, I had back in Aquarius season, no, not in Aquarius season, but like a few months ago, I had a vision of the earth and a dagger piercing the earth, a sword, a dagger piercing the earth, and dragons coming out of it. That's what's happening here. The imprisonment of the divine feminine power within all of us is being freed here. And it is by a consciousness shift and a perception shift. Okay, that's what's happening here. Don't expect that people are going to be coming. I know people always say that in the readings, like, oh, people are going to be coming back. No, honestly, don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Be more concerned about reconciling within yourself, becoming okay within yourself, because you may never get that apology that you want. And if you're going to walk around having your happiness be contingent on that, you're never going to be happy. It's time to let it go. With Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, and it's going to be going into, no, that's not what I wanted to open. And Jupiter is going to be moving retrograde into Aquarius, where once again, we have this expanding energy, but it's an internal expansion. It's going to be there with Saturn, which is also retrograde. These shifting of paradigm, as we've been speaking about. Uranus, the modern co-ruler of Aquarius. We're breaking down those boundaries within ourselves. The floodgates are opening and abundance is coming in, and that's spiritual abundance, that's spiritual wealth. Because when we talk about these things, I see readers talking about this stuff all the time. And people might be like, oh, none of that's real because I didn't get this money or I didn't get that. Honey, you might have curses on you. You might have karmic curses on you that you put on you through your energy. Or it just could be that you're receiving all of this spiritual abundance, but you're so focused on the money or like whatever, or you're receiving so much divine love or like agapic love or platonic love, or maybe even familial love, but all you care about is romantic love. So you can't see the value in any of that. It's really time to reconsider how we can reconsider our values and what we prioritize. Because as you can see also, Jupiter retrograde is in opposition to Venus, which is at 0 degrees. And I think how many seconds? 0 degrees and 41 seconds of Virgo, which is associated, which right now has the 10th house there, and the midheavens in there too. And Mars will be joining Venus in Virgo further down into the season. I had notes on this actually. What did I say? What did I say? We're going to think that we have to choose between our inner expansion and what we want, like our spiritual expansion and what we want. Like, oh, if I choose this thing, if I choose to act in my integrity and I choose to honor the principles that I know to be true, then this tangible thing that I want, I'm not going to be able to get. Essentially, we are going to be presented with the opportunity to sell out. And that doesn't need to be like this huge thing. It can really be like just compromising our values and our integrity, telling little emotional lies, pretending to be someone that we're not so that people will like us. I have 6 of Wands in the reverse here from the Cosmic Tarot. I pulled that a little while ago. This is an internal battle for healing. As Frank Ocean talked about, like Sensei and Pink Matter. I think about this all the time, Pink Matter. We are battling our mind you know, our animal reptilian brain, our animal instinct, our primal self. But we're not battling it. We're mastering it. It's, excuse me, it's not about choosing to break down those patterns and stop living by those same standards. It's really about those things. If we actually meet in the middle, instead of having that conflict of energy, it's going to feel like a conflict of energy. It's not. Because when you choose, we're being called to consider what our priorities are, what our values are. When we choose to meet in the middle and we choose to respect ourselves, we get more than we could have ever asked for. What we get will be beyond our comprehension. As I said, we can't imagine where we're going. So just let go and let the flow of the universe carry us to where we're supposed to go, because frankly, most of us are indoctrinated into trauma programming. I didn't even know that I would be doing this kind of thing for my life. But this is the thing that has saved my life. I had no idea, but when I was younger, you would have told me that, I would have been like, no, I'm going to be a writer. That's what I'm going to be. This saved my life, literally, in every single way. And I had no idea that I ever even be open about doing this kind of stuff. And I'm happier than I've ever been, you know? So these internal battles that are going to go on, choose yourself. Choose yourself, because this is the healing. Really get into those hermetic principles. I'm reading the Kybalion as a book on tape right now. I'm like doing a bunch of different books on tape right now. But the last thing I think that I want to touch on, I have two cards. The unknown card, the unknown, and it came out in reverse. The unknown card in what is this deck called? I don't remember what. The crystal light deck. No, that's not it. Crystal Visions deck. I knew it had to do with like Stevie Nicks. This is the Crystal Visions deck, and this unknown card is like the goddess Nyx energy, right? We don't know like what it is, but there's this divine light to it. We are sacredly guided and held and safe, and it's just this potent magic, this womb energy. Anything can happen. But if it was upside down, it tells me that it means like, but we are standing in the way of receiving because we're afraid. And I get it. I'm afraid sometimes, a lot of the time. But we don't have to be afraid of this energy, I promise. And I'm never wrong about these things. I'm not. So and that's because I'm not the one saying them. This is from spirit. If you're watching this, you're meant to. You're meant to hear these things. You're meant to know these things. It's okay to unclench. It's okay to let go. Your hands are tired. You are tired. Let go. 𝗵ć, turn on your electric light. And I see this also as like, instead of seeing fire, I see like this luminous light, like starlight kind of on chakras and stuff like that. Like I don't imagine fire anymore when I do like magic and stuff like that, like I used to. I imagine like orbs of light. And we also know that like higher dimensional entities communicate through light and like live as like beings of light. What it is, like the beta blockers in grandma's medicine cabinet, 𝗵ć's twinkling effervescent energy takes the edge off with its serious feel-good vibes. Who needs it? Emos, goths, buttoned up white collar stress cases. Do whatever you got to do to feel good. Like I said, creating heaven on earth. Stay away from the people who make you feel not good. Stay away from the people, places, situations, things, institutions, ideologies. You know, I used to be all up in the news. I don't watch it anymore because it is not good for me and I cannot afford to get depressed. I cannot afford to get suicidal. I cannot, literally, I cannot afford that. So I don't do things that are going to make me want to harm myself, because that's self-harm. Don't engage in those things. Whatever it is that can bring you light, do that thing. Not to excess, not to an unhealthy amount, but do that thing. Where to put it, wherever you want to do some elevated thinking, feeling, dreaming, being. So really meditation is going to be good with this. When to use it: when the daily grind has ground you into the pavement, when you feel like launching into space but lack astronaut training. Vibing with 𝗪ص can help divert your busy mind away from its pesky physics-ruled orientation. There's somewhere else out there. Flip on the high beams and explore. Yeah. Astral projection, dreams have been a big thing for people. Neptune's retrograde. And then the Two of Swords. So we're still in this hermit energy. We're still really coming back to ourselves. The Two of Swords, once again, has to do with this consciousness shift, like this syncing up of energy, this syncing up of understanding in this new paradigm, and just like allowing it to become, and like allowing it to become through us. It doesn't need to be through anyone else. And honestly, if you're not willing to live it, you're not very likely to find it as much as you would like to. Remember to focus on the miracles more than we focus on the tragedies. You know, be a miracle in other people's lives. When it gets to be really heavy and hard, listen to what somebody else has got going on. You know, just be a shoulder to lean on, you know, offer up some sage advice, your own personal experiences. Like, it may seem like it's super easy to be as vulnerable and vocal about the things and expositional about the things that I have gone through in my life, but it's not. And it's something that, like, it's terrifying, frankly. It's very terrifying, but I do it because it is to help people. And this is what we're really being called to do, is to create those spaces for one another, to hold one another in unconditional love and compassion for the ways in which we're different, or the ways in which we've been hurt or broken, and just be honest. We just have to create spaces that people can be safe to be honest. And we do that by making ourselves a safe space for us to be honest. So it has everything to do with humility, has everything to do with courage, it has everything to do with compassion, forgiveness, all that Christ consciousness stuff. And, you know, pursuing joy in everything that we do. I've been baking like a mofo because it makes me happy. And like, sometimes I'm baking and I'll be like, oh God, I gotta do this. And I'm like, no, I don't have to do this. I'm doing this because I want to do it. And just bringing myself back to the present moment and the joy that can be found in these very simple tasks. It can really be that simple. And for me, I'm finding it oftentimes is. So with that being said, I love you all truly and deeply. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Wow, I feel really great. Also, because I meditated before I did this, and I didn't meditate today or yesterday, and I was feeling really funky and not so great. Oh, Tiger Eye, I got 2, and that says balance your whole being. It has a lot to do with like balancing retrograde energy. And I'm not going to get into it. Oh, actually, I need to take a picture of the spread before I start putting cards away. But yeah, we are still in a bit of a hermit energy. So just be easy with yourself. There's no rush to get anywhere. Like, just be easy with yourself, hold space for yourself. And, you know, if you don't have capacity to hold space for others, that's okay too. Don't just ghost people, maybe. Probably it's good to tell them, but sometimes you don't really owe anybody an explanation, especially if they're people that you know are committed to not understanding you or never have understood you in the past. You know, that's all part of having boundaries too. So with all that being said, I love you all truly and deeply, and I will catch you on the flip side, probably tomorrow for the full moon.